Ladies and gentlethems, tonight's performance of the Rusical will be played by Leo and Willy Storm. Please silence your Grindr notifications and collapse your rainbow fans. The show will now begin.
Our story of RuPaul has really put us to the test. A story of a man who always wanted to impress.
Right.
No plans to be a queen who stunned and servants in a dress. Charisma, love and talent, and now we'll teach the rest.
It's a Rusical, like a musical, but not quite in Casey Booth. Let's approach to make a Rusical, but we're musical.
The library is open, we are reading all the tea. Sashay and wish and tell you say this one is gonna be a story for the end. She's mother, she's queen. The gang will go to RuPaul, girl, you better leave. That's literally our entire budget.
Wow,
What's up, rebels? My name's Willy.
My name is Leo.
I'm from the UK.
I'm from the US.
We are engaged.
We are queer.
And today we are here to dive ever so deeply into the life of the glamorous,
Infamous
drag superstar RuPaul Andrew Charles.
RuPaul has become a household name. Whether you love RuPaul or loathe RuPaul, you know RuPaul. From ballroom to television empire,
He has been a huge influence in queer culture, hosting one of the most successful drag competitions, platforming an abundance of talent from Bob the Drag Queen, Trixie Mattel, and plenty more.
and the memes? Honey. From back rolls.
To feeling very attacked right now! RuPaul's created many staple moments in queer media.
But who is RuPaul?
You know, behind the scripted thing that is TV. With success comes power.
And with power, the ability to manipulate public opinion.
Calculated editing can make anyone appear like a hero. And when you're at the helm of your own empire, you choose what the world sees. And you also pay a great deal of money to maintain what the world sees.
But what happens when the director yells, "Cut"?
And who was RuPaul before there even was a director? Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Girl,
We already done had ourses.
Picture it, November the 17th, 1960. RuPaul was born to parents Tony Nay Fontanette and Irving Andrew Charles. He was born in sunny San Diego, California, where he spent most of his childhood.
The star was named by his mother, Ru, deriving from roux, R-O-U-X, which is the popular French base that's used in many Creole soups and stews. RuPaul is literally named after gumbo. How iconic is that?
Despite his incredibly happy public demeanor, RuPaul's childhood wasn't all roses. As a child, RuPaul was regularly exposed to his parents' explosive fighting. His father was not interested in being a dad, and his mum was nicknamed Mean Mrs. Charles by the kids in the neighborhood.
Taken from RuPaul's words in his own book, The House of Hidden Meanings, his mother was just as likely to greet you with a "Who the F are you?" as she was to say hi.
Despite this, it was actually his mother who would set his want for fame into motion. She told a young RuPaul that a psychic had foreseen his future and he would grow up to be famous.
Where's the lie? While many people who may find themselves in this situation could be very cynical,
I would.
RuPaul decided to embrace this prophecy. He decided that the fame would come to him in the form of television. This was not a young boy who set out to be a drag queen,
but rather a determined one who set out to fulfill a prophecy. RuPaul believed his future had been written by the stars, and this was supported by spiritual and divine intervention.
In fact, when RuPaul talks about his own childhood, he describes himself as awkward and effeminate, but he makes the distinction that he never was truly the victim of any sort of phobic bullying or bullying in any sense, much like many other members of the queer community may have. He puts this down to divine protection. Taken again from his book, RuPaul describes only one instance of bullying that he encountered in school stating, "I met him outside his class and I threw the first punch. He hit me back and the ring he was wearing slashed the skin below my left eyebrow, drawing blood. We were quickly broken up. It remains the only event of childhood violence I can remember. I was protected as if by some unseen force, but in that protection too, I was often lonely."
And it was this, in fact, loneliness mixed in with witnessing domestic violence and general trauma that would eventually lead to RuPaul seeking comfort in drugs and alcohol. He began smoking cannabis at the age of 10. Yeah, he was using this to dissociate, I imagine, from the trauma happening at home. RuPaul eventually drops out of school in the 10th grade, and I had to look this up. So if you're not from America, you don't know what the 10th grade is, if you haven't skipped or been held back, you'd be around the age of 13 to 14 years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool.
He would eventually move in with his sister in Atlanta, Georgia at the age of 15. It was here that he studied theater at the Northside School of Performing Arts.
However, Ru would not complete his schooling in Atlanta either, as he was kicked out of school in the 12th grade.
Now, as you all know, this is not at all a story of a future lost to a life without a degree. But instead, this is a story of an icon rising to stardom. So buckle up, kids. Let's take a look back at what Ru got up to after high school in the 80s.
In 1982, RuPaul took the next step in making a name for himself as a performer. Self-promotion. He sent a headshot to a local TV program called The American Music Show. We searched for these headshots, but babies, we could not find it. If you do find it, by the way, link down below, please.
This shameless self-promotion paid off, and after hearing back from the program, he began appearing on the show regularly. He was often shown performing with his newly formed band, RuPaul and the U-Hauls.
If there's a cure for this, I don't want it. I don't want it. If there's a cure for this, I don't want it. I don't want it.
To give you all a little context, the American Music Show was this weekly TV series that was created and broadcasted between 1981 to 2005.
The show featured many up-and-coming queer icons in the Atlanta scene at the time.
It's credited as one of the longest-running public access cable TV shows. The show had a massive cult following, especially amongst the queer and, just general LGBTQ alternate scenes. And this effectively helped launch RuPaul's career straight into the spotlight.
Atlanta's been really good to me and stuff, and I feel like I want to go further. I want to take my RuPaul message to the world.
Speaking of the alternate LGBTQ plus scene in the 80s, did you know that RuPaul was in a punk band? No, seriously.
During his humble beginnings in the early 80s, RuPaul was none other than the frontman of an alternative Atlanta underground punk rock band known as Willy.
Who wants gum? I can have you. Who wants gum?
Formed in collaboration with the U-Hauls at the rhythm section and Ru at center stage. Their sound was inspired by the B-52s, the Plasmatics, and his all-time favorite, Blondie.
It's really dead? Don't lie. Yeah, I haven't finished my makeup and I look so ugly, and you had to catch me now, didn't you?
Well, how are your feelings here in your debut of your band?
I'm really nervous, but that's sort of good. I'm nervous on all of them, though, and it's worked so far, I think,
As his career has grown, many people don't even know about Ru's humble beginnings in the punk rock scene.
But over time, thankfully, things have resurfaced, revealing hidden gems from RuPaul's legacy.
Speaking of the B-52s, do you remember that music video from the 80s that featured RuPaul? No?
Gather around, children, and let's tell you the story.
In 1989, Ru's career would break out into the mainstream when he was cast as a dancer in the B-52s video for their iconic song, Love Shack.
How did Ru make it into the room with mainstream artists like the B-52s, you may wonder?
The story of how Ru ended up in this music video is actually a whole thing, but we will give you the TLDR version of this queer history lesson.
The B-52 B-52s are a new wave band that formed in Athens, Georgia in 1976. The original lineup consisted of Fred Schneider, Kate Pearson, Cindy Wilson, Ricky Wilson, and Keith Strickland.
Ru met Fred through a mutual connection, none other than the iconic Lady Bunny!
Lady Bunny was one of the first famous drag queens Ru connected with whilst trying to break out into the drag scene in Atlanta.
I want to introduce to you Miss Bunny Hickory Dickory Dock, Miss 688. Give her an applause, ladies and gentlemen. Miss 688. She's gonna do a number for you. Give it to him, Bunny.
Miss Bunny Hickory Dickory Dock.
They both got their start at the Weekends in Illusions drag bar. Two would become lifelong friends, and in 1984, they would move together to New York to conquer the NYC club scene.
It was actually in New York where Lady Bunny introduced RuPaul to Fred Schneider. This mutual connection would lead RuPaul to create another long-term friendship, this time with then up-and-coming 80s pop icons, the B-52s.
The friendship would be one that pushed Ru into the mainstream spotlight, when one day, Ru was invited onto the set of a B-52 music video for their new smash hit, Love Shack, La La Love Shack. In 1992, only 1 year prior to him getting signed to Tommy Boy Records, he achieved international stardom with his hit song Supermodel, You Better Work.
And we all know how iconic that became. I believe it was released on November 17th, 1992.
Supermodel went on to become the leading single of his debut major album, Supermodel of the World. Fun fact!
One track from Supermodel of the World, Stinky Pinky, was actually co-written by none other than Fred Schneider of B-52s himself.
And just like that, RuPaul had broken into superstardom. Both the track and the album individually would go on to receive many awards and nominations. Overall, it is very clear to see why Supermodel of the World became such an iconic piece of music and art within both the queer industry as well as the dance music industry.
Now, we know y'all know Ru's icon status down there. Drag queen, video vixen, and dance music superstar, Ru also went on to conquer the movie screen. He appeared in his first feature film, Spike Lee's Crooklyn.
Now, if you're not familiar with this film, Crooklyn is a 1994 semi-autobiographical film produced and directed by Spike Lee.
Since then, Ru has gone on to feature in over 50 shows and movies, including the sitcom Sister Sister. He was double cast in an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and of course, as we all know, he appeared in the cult classic, But I'm a Cheerleader.
And of course, the pop music icon would continue to top the charts throughout his career.
In 1994, he even recorded a duet with Sir Elton John. The Don't Go Breaking My Heart, I couldn't if I tried. Don't go breaking my heart, I go breaking my heart. This is why the duet wasn't the last one.
Hey.
The song would actually end up reaching number 7 in the UK charts.
Fun fact! So, while I was researching, I found this image of a taping of the American Music Show, where you can actually see a poster promoting Ru's collaboration with Elton John proudly displayed on the wall of the set, right next to a poster of RuPaul himself.
That's kind of cute.
It's so fun.
Cute.
I love it.
I love these little tidbits. Little tidbits. Ru went on to stun and shine in every room he was in. From TV and movie sets to recording studios. At this point, he was fully immersed in the entertainment world.
In 2004, he released his 4th major album, which he titled Red Hats. It didn't receive as much press attention as Ru would have liked and hoped for, and this actually led him to believe that there was some silencing going on within the industry.
He thought he was being betrayed by the gay media. Now he fully went on to blog about it. So according to him, Entertainment Weekly flat out refused to review his album. Yeah.
What?
Instead, they asked him to do like a comical piece on like a fashion article instead. They wouldn't do his work. They was like, make funny about costumes.
Do funny and look pretty.
Yeah.
Don't tell us about your music. That's crazy.
Yeah. He actually like said something in response to this. Like, we've got a quote. I need to read this out. So he was saying, the experience was like, quote, a black person being invited to a party, but only if they'll serve. He said, all my life I had to fight. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh. Despite some industry music drama, Ru would go on to continue recording and putting out music that would continue to top the charts. However, most people know RuPaul for one small, little, itty-bitty, tiny thing.
Alas, we arrive at the iconic Drag Race, which kick-started February the 2nd, 2009 through a camera quality only a mother could love. This idea, I don't know if RuPaul knew how big his drag empire would be one day, but it was through this beautiful creative phenomenon that we actually get into some RuTroduction.
Time to get your cups out, kids.
That's gonna be tea.
Woo, girl.
We already done had ourses. Before we give RuPaul her flowers for her influence in drag, let's break down what drag is in general. It was here before Ru, it inspired Ru, and it will outlive Ru, so we need to give our respect to the art form as a whole.
And we're gonna talk to you about that in full drag. Transition in 3, 2, 1. Now you guys ready for? Anyways, what is drag? We were looking around at different responses to this question to try to find like the most well-rounded one, and I found this quote from Fight Back News which says, "Drag is an art form that has been around since the early 1800s. It is a form of performance art that often involves dressing up in exaggerated clothing and makeup to exaggerate physical features and gender identity. Drag is rooted in queer culture and has historically been used to express creativity and affirm community."
The first drag ball or race or competition can be dated as far back as 1867. It was then that a sort of open to all genders type of event took place where drag performers shut it down at the Hamilton Lodge in Harlem. Fun fact!
The word drag was actually used for the very first time in a newspaper in the 1870s in the UK. Now, it may have been used before, but this is the first time it was used this way in relation to gender fuckery. It was relating to a party invitation where the response was, "We shall come in drag," which means men wearing women's costumes. We'll put our references in the description. I appreciate that might not be too shocking because in the 19th century, of course, in the UK, loads of men were wearing women's clothes because of Billy Shakespeare plays.
Billy Shakespeare, you were so British. Now, before we continue with RuPaul, let's take a second to thank today's sponsor, which, guys, this is our very, very first paid sponsor!
Now, we know ads can be incredibly boring, so we tried our best to make this as accessible to as many people as possible. If you've watched our deep dives before, you know what's coming. I'm gonna give you this ad in the form of a rap. You like to game? Same. But prices are insane. Instant Gaming found a way to help you game and save. No physical copy.
A legit CD key.
No distribution cost.
Keep the money lower, baby.
Peas from the source so the gameplay smooth. Less peas on the course so you can buy two. The linky in the script means that gave me instant paisley, but the discount in the amount means we all save paisley. Yeah. Aren't they talented?
Very. Drag has been used to liberate many LGBTQ plus people. People of color have been able to express their identities away from a culture that often polices gender expression and identity. I also want to give flowers to none other than Crystal LaBeija, the founder of the House of LaBeija in 1968. Drag performers like her were fundamental in creating safe spaces for LGBTQ POC people, especially the Black and Latinx communities.
If you haven't already, you should watch Paris is Burning. That's a must watch for people who want to learn about drag, ball, culture in general. It's definitely worth mentioning though that a lot of people who were featured in it were not happy with the final project. So watch it with an open mind, watch it with a critical eye, but yeah, definitely watch it.
Drag is mainstream now with the introduction of televised competitions, ratings in schools, performances in nightclubs, TERFs and hater tweets galore. JK.
With that, we come back to RuPaul's Drag Race Season 1, which aired February the 2nd, 2009.
Now, we're assuming if you're here watching this, you at least know of Drag Race, or you may enjoy it even, but if you haven't, you may have stumbled on the wrong video.
In case you actually haven't, and you're just here to support our work, or this just ended up in your YouTube recs, let's discuss what Drag Race is. Drag Race is a reality TV competition where RuPaul hosts, manages, and mentors stars as they battle it out each week to see who will be the queen of the season.
Winners walk away with amazing prizes which differ around the world. For example, in the US, winners will get a cash prize of anything ranging between $100,000 and $200,000.
And in the UK, winners will have a digital series, which is still produced by RuPaul's team, because that's the exact same.
The show has been running for 15 years, and with every year on air, they amass even more and more of a following from the LGBTQ plus society. So now you know what drag is, and you know what drag race is, so now let's talk about one of the biggest controversies to come out of the show.
And y'all, this is just one of them. Do y'all know what happened April the 11th, 2021? Nuh-uh? Let's get into it!
On the 11th of April, 2021, a drag performer and YouTuber called Bussy Queen uploaded a video to YouTube right here on our YouTube.
Beyonce's internet.
Titled, Exposing the RuPaul's Drag Race Contract.
Miss Ma'am serves you up 24 minutes of pure drama, exposing payments, small prints, and I imagine the part of Drag Race RuPaul didn't want to come out.
This video would go on to amass over 1 million views, which is her highest performing video ever.
Let's see why, shall we, as we show you the highlights.
This thing is crazy. 53 pages of crazy. And I read every word, so you don't have to. In full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. I also have to say this video is in no way legal advice, and my interpretations of this contract should not be taken as fact, but as my personal opinion. Signing this one contract could mean that a season 14 cast member could receive a call 4 years after that finale being required to appear on, let's say, season 18 in 2026, season 22 in 2030, All-Stars 19 in 2034, All-Stars 23 in 2038, and All-Stars 27 in 2042. Congratulations. You just potentially signed away the next 20 years of your life. You've got to do whatever they want you to do within a 3 days notice, sometimes reducible to a 1 day's notice. You also further grant them the right to videotape, film, portray, photograph, and otherwise record you, your actions, and your voice, and other sound effects, whatever that means, on an up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week basis. World of Wonder can restrict and will retain legal access to your complete digital media presence from when you sign the agreement to 12 months after your last episode. They could even straight up tell you not to use certain platforms like Patreon or OnlyFans, which could help you earn lots of income. Live performance engagements, subject to the producer's request, participants shall receive payment in the amount of $1,000 per show. I love the reducer's request little piece in there. They can legally require you to go on a RuPaul's Drag Race branded tour, but they don't have to pay you for it.
Now, as Bussy mentioned, he is not a lawyer, and neither are we.
Speak for yourself.
RuPaul, if you see this and you think, I'm going to sue them, rethink that and just like invite us on the show as guest judges or something.
But I do think he brings up some good points. RuPaul is big fish, like Hollywood. When you think of Hollywood, you think of this rich, sometimes unattainable lifestyle. And Hollywood and that entire empire is just like built on NDAs, tight contracts, and sex trafficking. Too real? Too soon?
I don't want to get this video demonetized.
Hollywood is built on NDAs, tight contracts, and so much talent. The point is, these contracts aren't new, but it doesn't make them right.
These queens are going to be at the height of their careers when they are fresh off of their own seasons. So to be tied into contracts that inevitably slow down their own progression is really counterintuitive.
Queens like Iman from season 13 who say they wish they could speak out about their contracts, and the way she says it definitely suggests a negative experience.
Soon as this contract is up and I can voice my opinion about a lot of the stuff that I sing, the contract can be up at 12:01. At 12:02, I'm coming live.
So yeah, as liberating as and exciting as Drag Race is, it kind of does sound like these queens sell their souls.
Now you may be sitting and thinking to yourself, how much of this is actually RuPaul versus decisions made by a production team that he has no say over? We aren't lawyers, nor do we work for the show. Yet. But one would assume that as the face and the name of the show, RuPaul would have somewhat of an influence.
To summarise, the payment some of the queens receive for the entirety of their show in RuPaul can be less than what they pay for their intro outfit. Yeah. Drag Race has become so commercial. The fits worn by the queens in season 1 versus now is like night and day. Money matters, designers matter, so to try and sustain that on such a low pay basically means that by the end of it, you're paying to be on RuPaul.
Let's take a minute and make sure that we're not completely leaning into only the negativity here. There's no point in denying that RuPaul's Drag Race is a major platform, and being on the show is a very great thing for anyone's career.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some pros.
You know, RuPaul's Drag Race may be the only show where saying I'll pay you in exposure actually works.
That's true, because the queens do go on to have fruitful careers, they go on to become stars, even if they do inevitably sign their souls away.
As you can imagine, RuPaul nor any of the production team have made any sort of comments to address this issue.
Or the devil contract. The show goes on, we continue to watch, and hey, we aren't judging, we watch it too. It's entertaining, it's fun. But, just like most things on TV, it is completely manufactured.
These scripted one-on-one chats with RuPaul or meaningful words of wisdom shared to a group of queens who just so happen to be sitting around the same table, quietly waiting.
It's literally the only time they see RuPaul. It's giving. Is the camera on me? Okay. As I look at this picture of little Leo with these beautiful blue eyes, I wonder what would big Leo say to little Leo.
Oh gosh, you know, I look at that picture and it just makes me so emotional because I actually, that picture was taken at my grandfather's house and he was a real big inspiration, and I would just want to say, don't forget.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. We just need to change the battery in your mic bag.
Okay, that's fine. I can just like sit here and continue chatting with Ru, right? I mean, Ru?
Devil contract and scripted content aside, RuPaul's Drag Race has definitely been fundamental in platforming many careers. As well as that, it has genuinely showcased some of the most heartwarming workroom moments between these queens that we just learned to love. Moments of activism, healthcare awareness, social justice, and many more.
While the validity of these moments are between the queens and their NDAs, we cannot deny how important it is to use a platform such as RuPaul's Drag Race to talk about such important and pressing issues. It's a very popular show that is viewed around the world. People watch, people listen, and through that, many subjects, issues, and voices surrounding POC and queer culture have been heard.
I've been living with HIV for the last 2 years of my life, and this means so much to me.
HIV and AIDS can affect the lives of anyone. Queer history remembers a time where AIDS was referred to as the gay virus. Both HIV and AIDS are massively misrepresented, and despite the fact 39.9 million people were living with HIV in 2023, it still remains a social taboo today.
Fan favorite Ongina is best known for her lovable, fun-sized personality and her signature bald aesthetic. But she is also known as one of the first ever queens to talk openly about what it's like to live as HIV positive.
Season 1, Episode 4. After learning she won a challenge, she broke down, stating, "I've always wanted to say, but I have been so afraid. I have been living with HIV for the past 2 years. You need to understand that we still have stigma in 2024. So for Ongina to say this on national TV in 2009 is not only inspiring, but incredibly brave."
She bravely showed the world what it was like to not only live with HIV, but to thrive with HIV. While we can't be sure that her own openness about her positive status influenced other drag queens to do the same, we have seen a number of queens in later seasons also speak out about their HIV positive status. These queens include Trinity K. Bonet from Drag US
and Charity Case from Drag UK. Also want to give a massive shout out to Trinity K. Bonet for the Slay Stigma Tour in 2019. She toured around the US with the aim of challenging the stigma around HIV. Yes, this is a rude dive, but we will pause to water flowers to anyone who deserves it.
Winner of season 11, Evie Oddly slayed her way to the crown. She also used the RuPaul platform to discuss her issues and struggles with EDS. This is a connective tissue disorder that can cause mobility issues and chronic pain. Evie also used this to her advantage during the competition, stunning the judges with her amazing mobility skills.
She was so good. The moments may be manufactured, but the people and their stories are real. These stories can and should be credited to the queens behind them. But by proxy, Ru's platform has allowed us all to see it on a much wider scale, which is objectively an incredible thing.
While it was a visibility win for me and my fellow trans siblings to see queens like Got Mick and Peppermint both perform as the first trans man and trans woman to compete on Drag Race, RuPaul's general relationship with trans visibility has been controversial, to say the least.
In 2018, RuPaul managed to alienate the majority of the transgender community who watched Drag Race for comments that, if this is the first time you've ever heard them, will be incredibly disappointing to hear. But let's not rush into that, let's bring it back to how it started.
It all started when RuPaul was interviewed and asked whether he would allow cis women to participate in Drag Race. In response to this, RuPaul says, and this is a direct quote, "Drag loses its sense of danger and its sense of irony once it's not men doing it."
Now, this is obviously not true. Drag can be done by anyone, man, woman, non-binary people, all or none of the above. So this was a whack-ass comment, but particularly confusing because, as mentioned, Peppermint, a trans woman, was runner-up in season 9.
So when RuPaul was asked to expand on this and give some clarity about what this would mean for trans women, he went on to say, and again, direct quote here, "Peppermint didn't get breast implants until after she left our show. She was identifying as a woman, but she hadn't really transitioned." What?
Peppermint was a woman before her breast implants, after her breast implants, before, during, and after the show, and she doesn't need, and no trans person needs, gender-affirming care to validate them as a trans person. Now, we get it, RuPaul didn't come from wealth, but he sure had it when he said these things. We all know that gender-affirming care is incredibly inaccessible. So for RuPaul to say this from his little empire of wealth came across incredibly classist, just transphobic, and just downright rude.
Minimizing the trans experience down to medical procedures is downright dehumanizing. When pressed on this, RuPaul then went on to say, "You can identify as a woman and say you are transitioning, but it changes once you start changing your body. It changes the whole concept of what you're doing."
Now, obviously, RuPaul was met with a lot of backlash, and I would like to say that Mother changed and learnt the error of her ways instantly. RuPaul kind of doubled down. He received so much backlash from the tweet that we are about to read that she had to take it down. But it's the internet and the internet is forever. So the tweet said, "You can take performance enhancing drugs and still be an athlete, just not in the Olympics."
Now, if you're confused about why this received so much backlash, let me break it down for you. RuPaul in this tweet once again just completely downplayed the entire trans experience, likening HRT to performance enhancement drugs.
It's this, like, passive aggressiveness surrounding HRT that would suggest that, you know, these queens aren't taking it because it's gender and life affirming care. No, they're like roiding up for, I don't know, to death drop. The ignorance of someone so many people looked up to as this inclusive queer icon was just so disappointing.
What you need to understand is that RuPaul is a household name, and with that, her voice has power.
It carries a lot of weight.
It does. So to see someone so prominent within queer culture be so transphobic was a big letdown to a lot of Drag Race fans who are part of the trans community.
And allies. I was pissed too.
Yeah.
After that final phobic tweet, the backlash finally got to a head, or the bad press did. So Ru did release another apology on Twitter again, which stated, "I understand and regret the hurt I have caused. The trans community are heroes of our shared LGBTQ movement. You are my teachers.
I do think it's important to note that after all of this backlash, there were changes made to Drag Race to make it more inclusive.
Now, whilst this was a couple of years before the backlash, I think it's definitely worth mentioning that the You Got Shemale slogan was changed as well. This happened after several queens and fans spoke up about finding it offensive. You Got Shemale is obviously a pun that is... Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's a bit outdated.
It's a bit outdated. And that obviously changed to the infamous...
She already done had hers.
So another catchphrase that changed was the gentlemen, start your engines and may the best woman win. Yeah. That changed from season 13 to racist, start your engine and may the best drag queen win.
Yes.
So they tried to change some language to make it a little bit more inclusive. They definitely did do that.
While the show did make changes, there were many viewers who refused to accept these things because they believed that RuPaul was not someone who was deserving of grace. You're the queer icon and you're the one with the platform. You don't get to just erase the T from LGBT, especially through a platform that's all about fun, play, and gender fuckery with some BS caveats. Social media says, RuPaul is a transphobic POS that had to be bullied to cast trans queens, so I could care less about any opinion he adds to the show.
RuPaul telling AFAB queens that they're so brave for breaking boundaries, as if he wasn't the one who put those boundaries there in the first place. What the heck?
RuPaul excluding trans women from Drag Race when the show constantly makes references to Paris is Burning, the club kid scene, etc. is so disrespectful and hypocritical.
There are people who refuse to watch RuPaul's Drag Race to this day because of the comments of his past. See, we all know that drag is an inclusive art form, and I'm glad that RuPaul or his PR team decided to finally catch up. With a platform that huge and a star that bright, of course there are going to be some highs and lows in his career, but as a cis person, I'm in no position to forgive it.
As a trans person, I'm also not in any position to accept that. I in no way speak for the community, but I will say that I do appreciate the ways that Drag Race has changed some of their things to be more inclusive to trans people within drag. But Ru's music still has transphobic slurs in it to this day, so I think Mother has a little bit more learning to do.
The final RuTroversy we will discuss about RuPaul is not entirely his fault, but if we can give him flowers by proxy, he can take some critique too. Disproportionate media attention to POC queens versus white queens has honestly been disgusting to witness. And this discourse only goes unnoticeable to drag fans who want to pretend it isn't there for reasons that only serve them.
Like we said, this is not entirely on Ru, but the show has a responsibility to protect the queens and to be clear and firm on what they expect from Drag Race fans.
Editing the POC queens as villains whilst white queens get 1 million subscribers and views just for breathing goes to a much bigger issue that goes way beyond RuPaul. But as a POC queen herself, it has been really disappointing to see Ru's complete silence when the queens are attacked continuously online. And I am speaking particularly around the beginning seasons. But yeah, Ru, where you been at?
Of course, like we said, this speaks to a much bigger issue, but it's still something that both of us thought it's worth bringing up in this video. So if you are a Drag Race fan, hey babies, remember to check your bias.
For 15 years, Drag Race has brought fans and friends together all over the world, providing queer visibility and remaining a source of great entertainment.
It still airs to this day and remains one of Ru's biggest legacies. But drag aside, where is RuPaul today?
Fulfilling his prophecy. Married to his husband, George LeBar, who he has been with since 1994. Leading his empire, creating decor, music, luggage, apparel, and so much more, RuPaul hasn't stopped grinding.
The kid who grew up amongst chaos, the teen who dropped out of school twice, to the now adult who is worth an estimated $60 million.
Creating this dive has really humanized RuPaul for us. Yes, Hollywood can feel incredibly unattainable, but taking the time to learn someone may surprise you. Ru's past is relatable as fuck. The high school punk rock misfit trope exists in literally every coming of age story.
Her present, however, is very questionable. She's made some awful mistakes in her past, but I guess who hasn't?
Can we get an amen? Alas, that concludes our deep dive and our final video of 2024.
When we started this channel, our goal was to reach 500 subscribers by the end of 2024. Now 13,000 of you have exceeded any expectation we could have ever imagined. Our goal for this year is to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of 2025.
And you can help us do that by hitting that subscribe button, like, and commenting for the algorithm. Thanking today's sponsors again, Instant Gaming. If you want to buy a cheeky game, just use our cheeky link in the cheeky description. We love you guys so much. Drink water,
Eat carrots, and for the last time of 2024, gay agenda, gay agenda, gay agenda, gay agenda.
We love you.
Merry Christmas, happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.